I'm the special rapporteur on the promotion of truth, justice, reparations, and guarantees on non-recurrences. There is another special procedure mandate on torture and another working group on enforced disappearances. But anyway, we work in some cases together, of course, because my mandate is how to deal with the past.
A special rapporteur for a while now. You're still under your mandate.
Yeah,
So what happens? When did you start your mandate? So I know.
I started in 2018.
2018.
Yes, I am in my second part of the mandate. So the mandate is for 6 years. Is 3 years, and the second part another 3 years. But the renew is automatical.
I see. And what
Yeah.
happens? Explain to us a little bit, because not all of our audiences know exactly what does the special rapporteur does, and how do you divide your work? It's first you research, and then you go in local, you go visit places. How does that
Yes.
work?
Exactly. You have two different branch of special procedures. Uh, Geographic mandates, that means special rapporteur on a specific country, or thematic mandate. I have a thematic mandate. So focus in how to deal with the past in terms of truth, justice, reparations, and guarantees and non-recurrences. I prepare two kinds of reports uh, on one specific issue, by instance, gender perspective in transitional justice processes, or after a visit to one specific country, I prepare report on the visit, no, concerning this particular country. So I visit last no last year, no, because the pandemic, but 2 years ago I visit El Salvador and the Gambia, and I prepared two specific reports on that countries because the country visit.
Right.
And
So
is
when you do visit, you visit the judiciary system, the police, or the
what
NGOs, or everybody a little bit.
that depends of the mandate. According my mandate is very broad, so I have meetings with all people, different people, civil society, media, church, all officers, the president of the republic, parliament, judiciary, of course. Well, it depends. If there is a truth commission, I have meeting with the truth commission. So yeah.
Yeah. So what is the Truth Commission? Explain to us a little bit, because the Truth Commission is a mechanism from the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, or is that a national level, or they work in tandem? There are two different
Both. Well,
commissions.
both. The truth commission is a tool. It's a tool to research what happened with the period of time when you have grave human rights violations. So it can be established for a country in a national level. That is the history of the first Truth Commission in Argentina in early 80s, or in South Africa, and sometimes the UN or my mandate, we encourage the state to create a truth commission, especially when you finish a dictatorship, or when you pass in a transition from one armed conflict to the peace situation.
Yes, during the peace process, part of it is usually negotiating also these violations of international human rights law. Yes, you mentioned Argentina. So Argentina went through this process in the 80s after the military dictatorship. That was a little bit how that happened, how that was developed.
Well, of course, as you know, the Truth Commission are composed with people with a great reputation in general, and that is very, very important for give to the society the truth, and for the society is better if they receive a report coming from people absolutely expert, independent, etc. So it is very useful for the truth, but it's not the only mechanism that we have, because if you have truth but not justice, we have a problem, and that is the situation in many countries, and in particular in Brazil. No, you have impunity for those who committed serious crimes, crimes against humanity, torture, disappearances, extrajudicial executions. So transitional justice processes needs the five pillars together: truth, justice, reparations for victims or their relatives, measures for non-repetition, that means vetting, changing in the system, and memorialization for a real never again.
Right, right. So you have been working with Brazil as well as part of your mandate now. Who have you met in Brazil to discuss the issues of impunity? Because as we know, the victims of torture during the military dictatorship in Brazil have not received, in many cases, some have received amnesty, but they have not received reparations, nor the perpetrators of the international human rights law violations have been brought to justice.
Yeah, totally true. As you know, in our mandate, we can receive communications coming from victims, families, or NGOs, and we process these communications, and we have meetings with the delegation of the state in Geneva when I am in Geneva, or I send letters to the government, and I receive the replies, and well, we process all the information. So I am following the situation in Brazil, and in other countries, of course, of the world, because unfortunately this problem is a pandemic in different countries. But in Brazil, the main problem is the lack of entire reparation. The reparation is just compensation, and just as you said, for not all victims, and that is a serious problem, and the lack of justice. But we have a law of amnesty that is interpreted by the Supreme Court of Brazil in a way totally inconsistent with the international human rights standards.
Have you been to Brazil recently now? And are you aware there is a change in the legislation which allows now successors of the victims of torture and enforced disappearances to receive compensation?
Yes, well, I have information on that, and in particular, um, more than 13,000 people received compensation, but we have 60% of the victims or families without any compensation. So we have a long way, even in this particular issue, and the compensation is just a part of the reparation. In international human rights law, the wording is a full reparation. That means compensation, rehabilitation, measure of satisfaction, apologies, and warranties on non-repetition. So there is a lack of reparations. There is very few issues on memory developed by, especially by NGOs, because the state is not now willing to move on in terms of memorialization. And
In
some,
case of Brazil specifically,
yes,
there
exactly,
is no
exactly,
memory,
exactly.
there is no conversation, no public discourse.
No, no,
The
no,
current
no.
administration is particularly against it too,
Ex
as you
ex
probably realize, right?
exactly. There was good processes. We had good processes in 2010 and 2012 when it was established a Truth Commission. The Truth Commission did a great job, but unfortunately, the current administration, President Jair Bolsonaro, delivered some speeches against the job of the Truth Commission, and reivindicating the coup, the military coup in Brazil, and the dictatorship, and that, of course, concerned very deep my mandate, and I delivered two statements on that issue.
I see, I see. So what's next in terms of Brazil? Are you going to Brazil again soon, or are you working when you come next, if there is an opportunity to once you travel, resume, that you'll be in Geneva to discuss these issues, or?
Of course, I am always open to visit the country, and I am always open to continue my job. The job is independent of a visit. You know, it is impossible to travel to all countries uh, when you have this kind of problems. But anyway, I continue working with the Brazilian situation, and I make references to Brazil in particular when we have a particular issue. By instance, when the Inter-American Court of Human Rights delivered the Herzog case. As you know, it was very important, and because
Yeah.
exactly, the court decided that it was a crime against humanity, so the amnesty is not applicable for this kind of crimes. And I delivered a statement because the ruling of the court, and also I sent my concerns to the administration of President Bolsonaro, because the intention to celebrate the coup of the military dictatorship in Brazil, that was 1 year ago. And I did not visit Brazil last year, but anyway, I work independent of visiting or not the country.
I see. And there is also now a reversal I've seen. Can you explain what's happening? That some amnesty, people who received amnesty are now being withdraw their amnesty. Why is that?
Yes, yes, totally right. So the parliament delivered an amnesty but the problem is the amnesty is interpreted by the Supreme Court of Brazil, the federal court in Brazil, covering also the responsibles of serious human rights violations. And that is contrary to the international human rights law and the standards of international human rights law. So for the political opposition, it is okay, but that was for the reconciliation in the country, and that is totally legal in terms of international human rights law. But for those who committed crimes against humanity, there is no possibility of amnesties or pardons or any exception of responsibility, no statute of limitation at all also.
So, but that means people who were on the opposition of the military coup, but committed also crimes against humanity. Or you are saying the people who actually committed the crimes, torturers, military who engaged in abject practices violating human rights law. They were receiving amnesty too at the same time, the military.
Yes, but anyway, we have not we have not cases. We have not cases on people from the opposition committing crimes against humanity, at least in the
Doesn't exist because
in, in,
very
in the
few.
not in the Brazilian situation. Of course, it is possible in other situations, and now the legal framework is clear, because after the adoption of the Rome Statute on the International Criminal Court, it is clear that crimes against humanity could be committed also for people in non-state actors. But at the time of the dictatorship in Brazil in 80s, in 70s and 80s, the legal framework was very clear. Just the agents of the state could be responsible for crimes against humanity. The non-state actors should be prosecuted and of course judged and punished according to the criminal law in the country.
Oh, I see. A civil criminal law code in the country
Yeah.
would be bound, not by international.
Yeah, but now I repeat, now the evolution of the international human rights law it is international criminal law is clear, and after the adoption of the Rome Statute, non-state actor and of course agents of the state could be responsible for the commission of war crimes or crimes against humanity.
I see. I see. Well, thank you very much for this overview. I have been very interested in these issues, and I've been covering the United Nations and the Human Rights Council, and I've been encountering, because I'm originally from Brazil, right? I was born in Brazil. My family is from Brazil. I mean, but last week I received a call from a lawyer in Brazil telling me that my grandfather had been tortured and
Oh,
imprisoned, and my uncle has been killed, and my uncles have been tortured, and now even the death of my mother is being questioned. That wasn't a suicide, that was maybe assassination. So I've been shocked because I knew that the family had gone through a very hard time, uh, many difficulties, because after that instances, my grandfather couldn't really work. He was sick and died quite young. And I knew that, like, but in the family, nobody spoke because everybody was ashamed or maybe afraid. And then suddenly I received this message, and I received this document which explains everything that happened, which is shocking, right? So I decided that I
oh,
would call and discuss, right, and
mhm.
also make a claim at the United Nations Office of the Human Rights, because there is a mechanism for reviewing this. I don't know what happened in 2010 to 2012. There was a truth commission, but nothing really happened because no, the perpetrators were not brought to justice.
Exactly. So sad to hear that. So all my solidarity with you and your family. And that is the situation in all countries, because my main battle with the governments is first to make understand that this is not an issue of the past. The suffering is present. So and the consequences for the families are, for life. for life. It's difficult to talk, it's difficult to process, and if the state did not recognize the responsibility, it's a re-victimization for a victim. So that is the first issue. The second is to be clear that this is not a political willness issue. It's an international obligation. It's an international obligation. So the state cannot say, okay, I will or I will not follow the international law. You must accomplish the law, full stop. And unfortunately, the transitional justice processes were open, fluent in the middle of political and juridical way. And that is always, that has always the same finish. That means impunity. And that is unacceptable. And third, the past is always present. And if you don't lead with the past in a proper manner, you never finish this kind of situation. So you need to shut the circle of the violence for a real reconciliation. And a real reconciliation is a consequence of truth, justice, reparations, and measures of non-repetition and memorialization for a real never again. That's clear.
Yes, that's how I felt. I've been feeling quite sick, when I read the document, and I've decided that maybe the best way for me to deal with this, right, is actually writing about it and discovering more about it.
Sure.
And, adding my voice as a journalist to speak with other counterparts in Brazil as well.
Absolutely. And the current violence, there is a clear link. There is a clear link. So
the amount of violence we are experiencing in Brazil in the streets, right?
And the lack of democracy and the backlog of the institutional situation, it is clear. It is clear, but it's not just Brazil. It's in all countries.
Right, right. Yes, and I think it was the Special Rapporteur, Paulo Sérgio Pinheiro. I believe he presided over the Truth Commission here in Geneva in 2011. And he said something recently that the wave of violence we're seeing and this craziness of saying that the return to dictatorship was a good thing, is a good thing, it has to do with precisely the lack of impunity of the perpetrators of violations of international human rights law in Brazil.
I fully agree. I fully agree. So it is clear, and it's the same in Guatemala or in other countries. And if the perpetrators are not bring to the justice, and the sense of impunity and you can do anything without consequences is clear for the society, and it's a very bad message. So it is impossible a real peace without justice.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. I'll stop here, but I'll certainly be in touch again if I have other questions when I edit the interview to clarify.
Of course, please, and send it to me. I'm sorry because my English is very bad, but I try to do my best.
Actually, it's excellent. It's very good. Okay. Thank you so much. Hablo
Thank you so much.
También, pero todavía no estoy haciendo programas en español, pero quiero hacerlo después.
Claro, cuando quiera.
Y es muy importante. Pensamos que la compañía puede después tener más como audiencias en Brasil y en Latinoamérica, ¿no?
Sí, y además...
Hace mucho que no hablo, pero hablaba mucho cuando era niña, ¿no? 12 años, porque íbamos a Argentina mucho.
Claro, habla muy bien. Y sabe, en este tipo de temas, Latinoamérica está muy interesada. Porque estas situaciones han ocurrido en todos los países de América Latina, ¿no? Entonces, las cuestiones de verdad, justicia, reparaciones en América Latina son todavía muy, muy vigentes y lamentablemente no todo el mundo tiene acceso a documentación en inglés o alcanza a entender o a leer inglés o a escuchar inglés. Entonces, producir material en español también es muy importante. Claro.
Verdad que me dice ahora, me doy cuenta, sí, muy importante. Para la memoria, ¿no? Porque eso es sobre todo muy importante, que la gente no se lo olvide para que no le pase a nadie nunca más, ¿no? De
El
verdad.
año, sí, el año pasado mi último informe al Consejo fue sobre memoria, procesos de
Así voy a
memoria.
mirarlo. Lo tiene en el website del...
Sí, exacto. Es el último presentado al Consejo de Derechos Humanos en septiembre del año pasado. En octubre hice uno a la Asamblea General sobre gender.
ah,
Pero el de septiembre es sobre memoria, el año pasado. Sí. Está en el
perfecto.
website. Sí.
Sí, voy a mirarlo también para escribir. Bueno,
Pues muy
muchas gracias. Un placer hablar con usted.
igualmente. Le mando un abrazo solidario para usted, para su familia,
Gracias.
naturalmente. Y estoy a su disposición para lo que necesite, Maya. Hasta pronto.
Un abrazo. Un abrazo. Adiós.
Adiós.